Rush, hurry, hurry. You need to make some money. Rush, hurry, hurry. You got to get all your presents. Oh, rush, hurry, hurry. Did you put all your decorations up? Rush, hurry, hurry. People are coming. People are coming. Rush, hurry, hurry. You need to get going. You need to get where you need to be. It's the holiday season after all. Don't you know there's no time to sit down? There's no time to rest. You got to hurry. You got to hurry. You got to get there. There's family. There's stuff. Really? This is what we're doing? The holiday season is synonymous with a lot of things. And yes, like Charles Schultz, I think it should be synonymous with taking care of other people, seeing the good in others, not this. People knocking people over and to get a deal on a television, having fights to get into a store for Black Friday deals. Too much hustle, too much bustle, too much running around. How in the world do you find sacred space in the midst of all this commotion? How do you build sacred space for yourself amid all this commotion? Well, let's talk about that today as we walk together down creation's path. Hello, everyone. My name is Charlie. I am a Christo-pagan druid and priest of Bridget.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brian. I am a Christo-pagan druid and sous chef to the Dagda.
Today, we're going to be talking about one of our favorite topics, and that's building sacred space. And specifically in this time of year when we have even extra burdens on us this year because, well, the powers that be have decided that everything needs to be a culture war issue. So there's not only we have to go be amongst family or out in public or what have you, but which family members do we even talk to anymore? I know a lot of people got uninvited from Thanksgiving and a lot of other people are going to be uninvited from Christmas. Yeah, it's a lot of noise. Where do we find those sacred spaces? Well, before we get into that, if you haven't already, don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, whatever the terminology happens to be on the apps that you're listening to us on. We do original Christo-pagan and druid content 5 days a week, Monday through Friday on this podcast, and you don't want to miss a thing. Let's start at the beginning, like we like to do. What is a sacred space? A sacred space is any place or time or experience in which you can cultivate meaning, peace, and compassion. Done. That's it. A sacred space is not a building. It is not because of a most holy object. Sacred space is wherever and whenever you can cultivate meaning, cultivate peace, and cultivate compassion. Basic definition that we're working on. And I think it's an important definition to start with because a lot of us have preconceived notions as to what a sacred space is. There are a lot of people that are like, nature is my cathedral. Well, that's great, but you twist your ankle and now you can't go on that nature hike.
You're visiting family in the city, and they live, say maybe they're not as affluent, and they live in a very industrialized part of the city. You're no longer in nature, and you can't even easily walk to get to any nature. You're lucky if there's 3 trees on the block. It's not on concrete.
This, to me, is why we are admonished against idols. I don't think, personally, that idols are all that spooky. I agree with Paul. It's a piece of wood, it's a piece of clay, it's a piece of stone, it's a piece of metal. I don't believe that statues, images have power like that. I really don't.
I even go a step further. Generally, it's any construct.
Yeah.
Even mental constructs. Yeah. That it doesn't even have to be what material or a certain specific material.
I don't want you to get me wrong. I'm not saying that we shouldn't have those in our houses. I'm not an iconoclast like that. I'm sitting here talking to you surrounded by statues and paintings and stuff. But they are there as reminders because, to me, I think humans are very liable to forget. Looking over and seeing the Dagda in the kitchen or Danu and Bridget right beside me or Lou or St. Julian or any of the other many, you just keep naming. We have so many around us. They're reminders. And I think that, yes, there are practices that you can do, like icon practice, which we should probably do an entire episode on at some point to help you get close to things. But these things are not sacred because they exist. That's going to be hard for a lot of people to accept. They're sacred because of what they represent, but not because of the thing itself. I think anytime you get locked in on the thing itself, that's idolatry. Like it has to be this spoon, this cup, this statue, this whatever.
If you want to have a fun little game to play with yourself and some others, get a short sound bite of the Santa sleigh sounds. For some, that is at least for myself, that is a thought construct, a representation of Santa. And you'll see in some individuals, it is that. In other individuals, this is just some bells. It's just a sound. It's nothing more. Because in some minds, that has been set aside. And in other minds, it hasn't been set aside. So it being set aside, it becomes sacred.
This is the problem with nature is my sacred space. And I'm not saying that that's bad. I love being in nature. I really do. Love being by a river. There's certain woods that I like being around. None of the ones around here, but there are places where there are woods that I like to be in. I get that. I understand that.
This is where I like to say, this is part of the both and. It's great to have that and have some of those mental sacred spaces that you can have wherever you are, because you are where your brain is. If those two are separated, it's a whole other conversation needs to be happening, if one can be happening.
Yeah, disassociation is real. You need to consult with a therapist. So why have I been going on and on and on about idols? Because this is, to me, the reason people have a hard time finding sacred space. You've associated sacred with trees. Sacred is grass. Sacred is that picture on my altar. Sacred is lighting that candle. Yeah, sacred can be found in all of these places, but sacred is whenever you set something aside. It is where you have chosen to cultivate meaning. If you like to be near rivers, I used to do this when we lived in California, and I didn't have the opportunity to travel somewhere where there were rivers. I would go somewhere where I could observe traffic, whether that be people or cars. That's a river. It's a river of metal or a river of people. That's a river. If you actually listen, it kind of even sounds like a river. It has that that sound that rivers have, especially a crowd of people, kind of burbles like a spring. And you choose. Sacredness is an act of choice, and we forget that. We love our stories of Moses and the burning bush. He turned the corner and the bush was on fire, and God was present. Take off your shoes, Moses, for this is holy ground. Would you know what it would mean if Moses hadn't taken his shoes off? It would have meant that that's not holy ground to Moses. Moses chose to take his shoes off and agree that this was holy ground. Moses could have left. Moses could have walked away. Moses could have left his shoes on and went, okay, what's going on here? There's a bush on fire and a voice coming from it. Jethro, are you back there? Right? There's a lot of reactions. Like so much of what we're doing in our spiritual life is about making a choice. So is rushing. So is hurrying. All of these things. While you might think that it's beyond your choice, I've tried to find the sacred in my local church or in my bedroom, and I just can't find it there. I have to go out. I have to be amongst the trees. That just means it's easier for you to call the trees sacred. Look, I can think of 3 places I've been on this planet that were instantly sacred. Like I didn't have to think about it at all. Just the nature of them. My immediate emotional response to them was, this is a sacred space. And it might be more than 3, but 3 came immediately to mind. But my point is, it's not a very long list. Most places, you find the beauty in it, you find the calm in it, and you choose that sacredness. In fact, those places that come to mind, I still chose. I could have been like, nah, I'm good. I don't need your sacred space right now, and walked away. We have a really bad tendency as human beings to give up our agency, to give up our ability to make choices and decisions, and to pretend that far more things are out of our control than are. And we also have the reverse problem that we like to believe that a lot of things that are out of our control are in our control, like economies. Economies are weird pretend games that other people play that we have to live in. It's not something that's really in our control. And it's not really in anybody's control because it's a weird game of telephone where you whisper enough and eventually a consensus is made. It's not real. That's what I'm trying to get at. And a lot of the things in our life are like that, where it's just a mass delusion that we all accept because we've lived with that delusion all our lives and just assume that that's the way things are.
An interesting, simple example of this was actually yesterday evening. I was out at a grocery store and a lady, and I'm assuming was her son, started to have a fight. It got loud and verbal to the point where it had disturbed you could say it disturbed the peace of the shopping because this particular place doesn't play music. So it is generally quiet and peaceful with the general just hustle and bustle hum of commotion, but nothing more than that was added to it. I chose to watch and observe everyone else's reaction to what was going on with them. I first observed them and saw that this was a disagreement, a fight. It was going to resolve itself one way or the other. In fact, the son eventually went out to the car and the mother ordered him to go to the car, and a little bit of sass and stuff, but nothing more than that was going to come of that. So I chose to observe everyone else's reaction. And one lady chose to vibe off of the vibes that was coming from their fight and got angry, and then had to fight to restrain themselves from yelling at them for yelling at each other and joining in the anger of the moment. Several other families chose to be embarrassed. They chose awkwardness because of what other people were doing. Had nothing to do with them. They did nothing wrong, but they chose social awkwardness in the moment. A lot of the kids looked over and they chose just to go about playing, trying to entertain themselves while the mother shopped. So they just went about. They chose not to even be involved. But everybody chose. It was just an interesting little example of how people choose.
And they participate in the game. Because everything really, when you boil it down, is a game. Now, the stakes may be really high. The stakes may be life or death. But we're making up rules. We act like a lot of the rules that we play by are fundamental to the universe. And like gravity. Taxes exist because we have collectively agreed. It's a rule of the game, right? So many of the things that affect us in life are just rules for a game that we've decided to play together. Money. Why does paper have value? Why does gold have value? Well, we decided it did. We tell ourselves sweet stories like there's intrinsic value in this thing. There isn't. When you believe with your whole heart that there's intrinsic value in gold or something, diamonds are cheap. They're very, very common. They're only expensive because a couple families hoard them and buy them off the market so that they can convince other people that they're precious. Diamonds are common. Diamonds are like sand. They're everywhere. But we play the game. This is where life kind of mirrors the Matrix, in that you get these moments where you can actually choose there is no spoon. Now, you're probably not going to bend a spoon. You're not going to be able to fly because you said there is no spoon, right? That's movie magic. We talk about movie magic a lot, right? But real magic is being able to do that there's no spoon and have there be no spoon. A lot of the chaos is how we choose to react to it. A lot of the chaos is how we choose to take it in. A lot of the chaos is how we choose to participate in it. You can hear all this noise, this hustle and bustle is noise. And if it's noise, it's noise. But I was just talking to you about how I used to watch cars and crowds, and they were musical like a river to me, like water over stones, that kind of rushing sound. That's a choice. I could hear it as noise, and often would hear it as noise. I typically wear earplugs when I leave the house because of noise. But I am capable of willing myself into seeing it as something else. And that's how you create sacred space wherever you are.
Let me shift your perspective for a minute. For us in the northern hemisphere, we're in winter now. Last night, it was down into the teens where we were. Fahrenheit, that is.
That's what we need to.
Yeah. Let me clarify. It's Fahrenheit, teens. Still very cold, well below freezing. We made a choice to run heating in the house because outside happened. Yes, it was cold outside. Inside was comfortable and warm. We chose to set up a sacred space and to run heaters to keep the house warm. We do this already in our lives. It's something as simple as just that.
Yeah. You may think that this is some beyond you or some advanced technique, but it isn't. Every time you engage with anything sacred, you're agreeing to participate in that sacredness. You are agreeing to play that game. I'm not saying it's not a struggle sometimes. Don't get me wrong, but okay, you're in that crowd. Maybe you're somebody like me who loves Christmas carols. Sing a Christmas carol in your head. Now you're living in your own little sacred space inside yourself, singing this Christmas carol. Maybe you hear it on the radio in the store that you're walking through, and in your head you just sing along. And you are now cultivating peace. You are cultivating meaning.
Going back to that example from last night, when I noticed the initial argument going on, that initial instinct, that fight, flight, or freeze kicked in because I've already started into the season, and part of my rituals and traditions is that Guardians of the Galaxy Christmas special. So the first thing that popped in my head was the song to help me create that sacred space. I don't know what Christmas is, but Christmas time is here. It is such a silly song about just crazy silliness that it makes me laugh. And that broke me out of the initial instinct and allowed me to then step in and take a choice. And because the refrain was, I don't know what Christmas time is, but Christmas time is here, was a reminder of both the tensions and the hustle, and also what's going on. And it's when I also thought to go ahead and just observe everybody in the moment. I find that stuff fascinating. But helped me to create a sacred space in which then I was protected from everything else going on.
That really is core magic. That is a lot of the everyday magic that we're talking about. Magic is this thing that's not always about bringing wealth into your life or bringing this into your life. Cultivating meaning is magic. As we're learning more from psychology, as we're learning more from the research into what meaning actually is, we know that meaning is something that is cultivated. And I have been trying to fight a lot of people who are still stuck in this erroneous idea that meaning is something that you find. I am an artist. I draw, I paint, I do music, I write stories. Those stories are meaningful to me because I placed meaning in them. I know for a fact, because I've been doing this long enough, that doesn't matter. People are either going to bring their own meaning to whatever I write or produce, or they're not going to find meaning in it at all. Meaning is a game that we play. That's sad to some people. We want this external idea of meaning to come in and supersede over our free will and tell us, no, this is meaning, this is purpose, this is life, this is sacred, this is sacred, this is the thing. And yeah, there are times where you're just dumbstruck and awed. I remember the first time we were ever on the Golden Gate Bridge as the fog rolled in. It was so overwhelmingly beautiful and just powerful in the feel of, like, you could feel that front hit you and just push you back. And that dewiness on your skin and the tingly salt on your skin. It was such a magical experience. Was it magical because it happened or because I was willing to participate with it? What we're learning from the science, what we're learning from the investigations into meaning and purpose and everything is, it's because I was willing to participate. Because I was willing to take part in it that made it magical. I could have just stood there and gone, fog. And a lot of people who were born there and lived there their entire lives probably go, fog, because it's so routine. It's something that they experience so much. They don't have that magical. This was the first time I'd ever experienced that. The first time I was in Muir Woods and experienced the trees raining. It wasn't actually raining. Just enough fog had gone into the leaves of the trees that they were watering themselves. Their leaves were condensing the fog into rain. That was magical. It was magical because I chose to participate in that magic. I could have been like some of the people that were there that day and went, it's raining, and like had a freak out and ran to their cars, or quickly pulled out umbrellas or threw on a smock of some sort to protect themselves from the evil water falling from the sky. We all made different choices, and those choices can be difficult. I had a hard day this week where I had to go and do something I really didn't want to do in a place that was like purposefully designed, it felt like, to be a torture chamber for me. The way the sounds echoed, the decor, everything was just nightmare fuel. And all I could do was sit there and try to meditate and bring that sacred space in and just be there in my sacred space in the midst of all of this nightmare fuel around me and just be in my sacred space. That's what we have to do. We have to choose. And it's even better when we can find people to play with us. This to me is why I find it so sad that we have denigrated the value of the Christmas Carol. I remember as a kid, I rarely heard Christmas carols as a kid. They weren't piped into all of the stores when I was young. And granted, I'm old now, but you didn't hear them everywhere. If you did, they were just the music. They didn't have the words. It was just, you might hear the melody, but Christmas carols were special. They were the things that you sat around with your family and your friends and you sang them together. And that's playing the game together. Because like I've said 1,000 times, it feels like on this podcast, my mission for this year, and by this year I mean from Samhain to Samhain, is for this to be my year of silly. To bring silly back, to remember that playfulness, that silliness is holiness. that silliness is blessing. And I don't know what it is that you find as your gateway to the sacred. That's why I haven't been that kind of specific. For me, it's meditation. If I can just take a minute, say a mantra a couple times, do mindfulness and focus on my breath for a little while, just center myself, I can get into that sacred space very easily. That works for you? Yay. We're the same. That's not how it works for everybody.
Yeah. For me, a lot of that works off of those reminders. So sometimes it could be a song. Sometimes it could be remembering a line from movies. Sometimes it can just be simply remembering to take a breath, inhale and exhale, and I can be there. Sometimes that's all the reminder I need. Sometimes it's seeing one of the other statues or images. It's just having that reminder that can help me be there.
The moral of the story, the most important part of this, is something we've been trying to do all year, is help you to understand your sacred spaces. They might be a little bit different season to season, right? Going out and looking at the flowers is not something you can do in winter, right? Looking at the beautiful limbs of the trees is something that's hard to do in the summer, right? I'm one of those people, I like looking at the trees without their leaves. It brings me joy in a way, but I'm a fall winter kind of person. So you don't always have the same triggers.
And a lot of that has to do with the pre-work too. Once again, it's that faith without works. It took a lot of pre-work to be able to just have myself, to have that preconditioning so that when that instant happens, that anger gets introduced into the environment. I have preconditioned myself so that when the instincts kick in, that I can then stop that. My brain already is trained to know, okay, introduce something that will work in the moment for that trigger so that I can then step in and go, okay, I'm creating a sacred space. Now I'm choosing what I want that space to be like and pull up the image, the song, whatever it is.
And that's why practice is called practice. It really is. It sounds like
practice.
It sounds like a cliche, but the point of meditation is not to be the best at meditation. And that a lot of people misunderstand that. The point of meditation is to teach yourself how to cultivate mindfulness, to cultivate compassion, to cultivate whatever it is you're cultivating during that meditation so that you're developing those skills. It's exercise, which is why I often prefer to call them spiritual exercises. That's what it is. You're cultivating those spiritual muscles so that when you're in a space and somebody's trying your compassion, you have tools and a muscle memory to help you get into that place of compassion. When your mindfulness is being stressed, you have tools and techniques to help you pull that muscle memory together and get into that place of mindfulness. That's why practice is important. That's why you should meditate as often as you can, preferably daily. That's why you should figure out what things you need help cultivating. Maybe you need to look into a metta practice to help you with compassion. There are a lot of different kinds of practices that help you cultivate compassion. That's a good one that I like. Maybe you, like me, have an issue with heedlessness. I can be very distractible. The ADHD is real. And so being able to cultivate mindfulness is hard. It is really hard. Sitting and counting your breath may not be the way that you find mindfulness. You may need to do mindful walking. You may need to do some kind of body prayer where you're dancing or something. There are many paths to mindfulness. You have to find yours. Once you have those, your sacred space is wherever you are. And yes, that can be because we may choose, like I do. I'm an animist. I believe that God is in all things and all things are in God, and that the divine is present in everything, even the cement in the buildings and the asphalt in the street. God's in all of it, but also having the tools to get yourself to really be there with it. If you're new to this idea, just count your breath. Don't criticize yourself for miscounting or anything. Breathe in on the 1, breathe out on the 2, and pick a number. I like 10. It needs to be an even number. Then when you hit 10, you start over again. And this will show you when you lose mindfulness, because you'll all of a sudden notice you're at 14. Oh, you lost the thread. So you focus back in. We go back to 1, and we continue going until we're just sitting there, breathing in on the odd numbers, out on the even, back and forth up to 10, and start again. It's very simple, very easy. Is even simpler. On breathe in, you think to yourself, breathe in. On breathe out, you think to yourself, breathe out. Whatever works well for you. But it's a simple technique that gets you there and gets you started. And again, you might need to be in motion. You might not be able to sit and do this. That's fine. So find a place where you can walk in a circle. So you're not going to walk into a tree, because when you're first working on developing mindfulness, you will become very blind to your surroundings, because your brain will be like, well, I haven't had to be in the moment for a while, so I'm just out. And you will walk into trees. You walk into corners. You find a space where you can just walk in a circle that's wide enough that you won't get dizzy. Just a little circular path, a little square path. Walk around the block a couple times, whatever. Just do it, because sacred is not a thing that you find. It's a thing you participate with. Find a way to participate with it. Find a way to play. Play is sacred. And I hope this has been helpful. There's a lot of hustle and bustle this time of year, and some of you may be getting tired of us repeating this message, because we've talked about this for all of the holidays so far. And we're probably going to keep talking about it because, again, people are forgetful. Or even worse, we like to make weird exceptions. Yeah. Well, that's true, except when? Not except. I remember when I really badly hurt my knee. I had already started learning meditation by then, and I couldn't stand up. I was kind of trapped at the foot of a stairwell, and I would shout, and then I would mindfully count to 10 to calm myself down, and then I would shout for help again, and then mindfully count to 10, and then shout again, because I knew if I panicked, I might hurt myself further. And there I was in a lot of pain at the bottom of a stairwell, hoping desperately that somebody would hear me calling. You can be mindful in a lot of places. That's the thing, allowing yourself to participate with it. I hope that this has been helpful. I hope that you've enjoyed this episode. I would love to know any tips or tricks you have about finding sacred space, especially with all the things going on in the world right now. How are you finding that calm, that peace? You got any special techniques that you've learned? Have you learned any little tricks? Because it's good to share those with others, because you never know what might work for somebody else too. If you're listening to us on YouTube or Spotify, you can leave a comment right there. If you're listening to us anywhere else, even if it says you can leave a comment there, they won't let us know. So you can leave a comment there, because engagement is magic, but then head over to creationistpath.com, click on chat, and you can leave a comment there, and we will see it and be able to get back to you. Thank you to everybody who does that. While you're there, if you have a few dollars you can pass our way, you can think about joining a membership, or you can support us on Ko-fi or Patreon. I am CE Dorset on both. And on Ko-fi, you can do one-time donations. And also, they take the least of all of the platforms. So more of your gift goes directly to us. Thank you to everybody who does that. It really helps us to keep the power on, keep food on our table, and a roof over our heads. If you don't have any money, that's all right. If you know anybody you think needs to hear, especially this one, send it to them. But anytime you share what we're doing, it really does help us out a lot. And until next time, let's say a prayer to Saint Raphael, the Archangel of Travelers. Saint Raphael, cast your wings above us to protect us from the storms of life and help us to find sacred space wherever we are, and to be open, and unlike Tobias, who did not see that he had been traveling with an archangel until the end of his travel, to see the sacred as it walks with us down all the paths that we need to walk. Amen.
Amen.